Welcome back, I'm Paul, and today we have an empty 3-pound barrel because we pulled something else out, and we're going to get started on some Sodalite. And I bought this because I, like the color blue, and there's not a ton of rocks out there are blue, so I decided I wanted to try some of this, but it is softer. I think they say it's like 5.5 to 6 on the Mohs scale. This is what it looks like when it's dry, the bulk that I got at least. And I don't know if it's my first time on Sodalite, so I don't know if it's high quality or low quality. I mean, some of it's got a lot of white in it, like that. And some of it's darker blue, like the first piece I held up. And all of it's got, it's all blue. Some of it has more of a, I don't know, whatever the outside layer of that is, it's more blue on the bottom side. I've got these ones wet so you can see the blue out of them a little bit better. These ones are still dry. So we're going to get started, and I'm not sure, most of the stuff that I've tumbled is agate and jasper and things like that where the hardness is like a 7. So this is the first time that I've ever tumbled something that I know of. I might have had something in my barrel, miscellaneous, that was softer, but I didn't even know it. So, like in my 12-pound barrel. So I'm thinking I'll probably just set it up the same way I normally do, and I'm going to put it in there for 5 days instead of 7. So I'll do I would run a smaller coarse grit if I had any, but all I have is the 4670, so I'm going to start with that. And I'll check it. I'll probably check it after like 3 days, but I'm sure it'll probably need more time than that. But if it by chance would be done in 3 days, I'll make a video, but we'll see. I'm thinking I'll probably go 5, and it may end up going 7 or a couple weeks. I don't know. It's my first time. So I do have some pieces that I'm going to break up a little bit more, but I'm going to put some of the smaller pieces in there for right now. I've got 5 pounds of it here, so let's see. There's that one. That one looks like it's got some black in it. That's what it looks like wet. Definitely, anybody that's been around rocks normally knows that you see all the colors and stuff a lot better when it's wet, and when it's wet, it almost looks like what it'll look like when it's polished. So that's a pretty good indicator. Let's see. I don't know if I'm going to try to break it. I seem like if I try to break it, I get a lot of scraps, so I might try to cut some of it on my saw. So we'll see. I haven't had to saw it yet this year. The weather hasn't been great yet, but we've been tumbling rocks anyways. All right. So it's about probably 2/3 to 3/4, but normally the first week, everything's so jagged and sharp edges that it rounds down those parts pretty quick to where it settles in the barrel better, so you get it won't be near as full after just a few days. So we're going to run with that. I've already got my water in, and we're going to do 3 tablespoons of the 4670 coarse grit. And I'll get that on the tumbler, and I'll probably check it after 3 days just to see what it's doing, because like I say, it's a little softer. But I'll probably be back after 5. All right, it's been 7 days on our Sodalite. I checked it out after about 3 days because it's a little bit softer than what I'm used to tumbling, and it still looked like it had a long ways to go. So it went the full 7. I had some stuff built up in there. Maybe I needed to give it a couple of shakes throughout the week, but there's what we have. Obviously wet. Things have, this is the, after 1 week, so it's, everything's round off the most change that you'll see throughout the stages. Now it always slows down because you got rid of most of the jagged edges. So I will go through those. Well, let's just look at a few of them. There's one, it still has some flaws. Yeah. I like that one. Everything feels to me like it needs a little bit more time. So, I think we're just going to put all of these. Everything's got something. We're just going to put all of these back in the barrel. Yeah. And here's the rest of it. That's what it looks like dry and raw. I actually cut some of it in the saw this week because we had some warm days, and I cut some of it, so we've got some smaller pieces that'll fit in there. So we'll get it back to 2/3 to 3/4 full here. I'd say that's good. We'll add our water. Just to the bottom of the top layer of rock. That looks good. And I will add 3 tablespoons of the 4670 coarse grit, and it will roll for another week, and we'll be back to check it. All right, our Sodalite has been going for 2 weeks. And it is really foamy. Curious to see what this looks like. Oh, looks like I had some issues with stuff sticking. I had that last week with this stuff too. Unless it just settles to the bottom. It's been off the tumbler for like 5 minutes. Sometimes it'll settle pretty quick. I don't know if that's because it's softer or what the deal is with that. If it ground more material off to be in there to settle. All right. So that's what we have. Looking pretty good. Most of it's been in there 2 weeks, maybe a few pieces I added last week, so it's only been in there for 1 week, but all right, I will go through that and we'll see what's ready to move to the next stage, and we'll load the barrel back up and get it going another week. All right, so Sodalite is new to me. It's a little softer than what I'm used to. So I don't want to tumble anything away too much. So I'm going to call those ones done for right now. It feels way different than any of the other stuff I've ever tumbled, being that it's softer. And some of these I might tumble a little bit more later, but for right now I'm going to call them good for the next stage. And we'll see how they turn out, because it's an experience. So the barrel's like about half full or less now. So we will add in some new, fresh stuff. think we'll call that good. So I've got the water in there already, and I've got 3 tablespoons of the 4670 grit. And we'll put that back in the tumbler, and we'll let it roll for a week. And I'm going to do this same thing every week until I have enough to do a load on the Lotto tumbler. So I may not video it every week, but when I'm ready to go to the Lotto tumbler, I'll record how many weeks that I've been doing it to get enough for that batch, and then we'll start looking at it through the rest of the steps once we get to the medium in the Lotto tumbler. So, all right, we had 5 pounds of the Sodalite, and we have all of it ran through coarse grit. When I started, I was running 4670 like I do on everything else, and I do 3 tablespoons in a 3-pound rotary barrel. Well, I come to find out that that grit was enough grit, and it was aggressive enough with this soft stone that it created enough rock dust that it gummed up really fast. It almost wouldn't go a week. So I started running, I found that I had some straight 80 grit. So I started running 80 grit, and I only ran 2 tablespoons instead of 3. So it ended up taking me 8 weeks with my 3-pound barrel to get all 5 pounds of this ready to go to medium grit. So I did the same thing every week. I dumped it out, rinsed it, took out the stuff that was ready to move on, added some new stuff, and did 2 tablespoons of 80 grit silicon carbide to get us 8 weeks to get us to this point. And now we have all of it done with coarse grit ready to go into the Lotto. So we're going to put all that in, and we're going to get the Lotto stages going here. We'll look at a little bit of it here along the way. It's a pretty nice rock. It's got a lot of blue. Obviously, it's all blue and white. There's some pieces that are better than others, and it has a weird texture to it because it is softer, a little softer than most of the stuff that I tumble. It's only like a 6 or a 6.5, and most stuff I tumble is 7 or 7.5, I think, in that range. So I thought it was going to roll faster or shape faster in the coarse grit than it did. A lot of people were saying they would run it for like 3 days and check it or stuff like that. Well, I ended up going 8 weeks, running it the full week with 2 tablespoons of grit. So that way it didn't gum up too much. It would create too much dust and I'd have grit left over. So I just started doing 2 tablespoons and I was good for a week. So it took a lot longer than I thought. Maybe it would have went faster, and like a 12-pound barrel, you've got more weight, so it has more grinding action. So I could have done that, but I didn't want to put it in with anything that had was harder than it, because I didn't want it to get too tore up. So we got some nice pieces in here. I think it's going to turn out nice. Well, it's a learning curve here. We're going to see how it goes. I've watched some videos of people doing Sodalite in vibratory, and a lot of them say that they add sugar when they do the vibratory on it, so it will thicken it up. So we are going to try that. Everybody that I watched had a lot larger tumbler, like a big, like Ultra Vibe or something like that. I can't remember the name of them, but they're like a lot larger vibratory tumbler than what I have. This is only a 4-pound barrel. I want to say that the ones they were running was like a 12 or a 15 or 18 or something like that. So it's going to be a learning experience for us here. And maybe we'll end up having to redo some of it, or maybe we'll just have to order some more and try it again. Or maybe it'll turn out nice. So it's all about the same. I might go through it and we'll look at some of my favorite pieces, because there's definitely some that have a cooler pattern in them. They say that if you get some of the ones that have, that one necessarily doesn't. They say if you get some that has like a orangish tan color in it, they call it like sunset or sun something like that Sodalite. But I thought I saw a couple pieces earlier that I had, but I'm not seeing any right now. I'm hoping it all polishes up nice. It'll be a nice looking rock. This one's got a lot more white in it. Almost looks like quartz in there. I don't know exactly what the two materials, or if that's just what Sodalite is, or if the white and the blue are different materials. I'll do some more research on that, see what I can figure out. Oh, that was one of my favorites. I really like that one. That's got some really cool pattern in it. So I'm I'm pretty sure that this one's going to end up in our favorites jar no matter how it turns out. But that one's one of my favorites. It's got some really cool pattern on it. So, and I think if a person was into like wire wrapping or something like that, there's a lot of cool shapes and cool colors that you could probably do some cool stuff with, but I haven't got into any of that. So maybe in the future we will, as my daughters get older. That one's got some pretty cool distinct blue in it, or I mean white. So I'm hoping we can get this all in the barrel so I can get it all done in one batch and I don't have to do like a tiny little batch with a bunch of filler in it. So I kind of like some of these like this too. They're really dark blue and almost black in them. That one doesn't have basically any white in it at all, so that one should be cool. It was supposed to be 5 pounds that I ordered, and I've removed a lot of material, I'm sure, and this is a 4-pound barrel, so I should be able to get all of it in there. And then we got some littles. So that's all of it. There we are. So we will, I'm going to dump a little water out. Leave enough in there to keep it wet. Put some media in there, some ceramic. All right, that should do it. We will drain the water out and we'll get set up on the Lotto tumbler and we'll get it rolling in medium grit. Okay, we're all set up on the tumbler here. Everything inside is wet. And like I said before, I've never done this before, and everybody that I watched had a different size tumbler than I did, and I'm not exactly like following anybody's recipe or anything, but my plan is on the medium grit, if I use 2 tablespoons, I feel like I have a hard time keeping it rolling as long as it needs to. So my thought is when I add the sugar, it might even make it gum up faster. So my initial plan is we're going to run it in medium grit, and I'm going to do 1 tablespoon of the medium grit rather than the 2 that I normally do, and then I'm going to add I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of sugar, because I thought I saw somebody was doing a tablespoon per pound, but I feel like that's too much. So I'm going to try to do 2 tablespoons for the 4-pound barrel. And maybe after a day, it might not be looking good, and I might have to change things, and I'll let you know, but maybe it'll work out. We'll see. Maybe we'll learn something out of this, hopefully. We'll either find out if it works or find out what we need to change. So we're going to run 1 tablespoon of the medium grit, which is like 120, 220, or 180, 220, and 2 tablespoons of sugar. I'm going to try to let it go for 3 days, but we'll see what happens. Worst case scenario, they should taste good, right? You don't want to eat them. That was the 2 tablespoons of sugar, and here is the silicon carbide medium grit. So I'll probably try to check them a little more often for the water because I don't know how it's going to go with the sugar in there. It's my first time using sugar. And we're going to try to let them go as long as they can. My goal is 3 days, but it might not happen. But we will be back when we're ready to go to the next stage. Our Sodalite has been in the tumbler for 2 days. I planned on trying to go 3, but I tried sugar like I'd seen in some other videos, and I also was kind of occupied this weekend, so 2 days in a row I was away from the tumbler for over 12 hours, and both times when I come back it was all dried out. So I got some water in there and I got it rolling again, and then it was the same way again today because I was away from it again today. So I put some more water, some more soap, or some more water and some dish soap in there to clean them all up, help get the slurry off easier. And we're going to rinse them, wash them, put them back in, and get them going on the next stage because I think they've been good enough. And I'm also going to go without the sugar because I don't know if that's what caused it to get all dried out faster or the fact that I was away from it. Normally I'm okay when I'm away from them that long because it's just when I work on the weekend. I'm away for more than 12 hours, but with the sugar in there, it dried out on me, so. We are gonna finish the batch like I would do any other batch of rocks in my Lotto tumbler, and we'll see how they turn out, and we'll decide if I needed sugar or not. Well, I'll tell you this, after the 2 days in the medium grit and the Lotto, they're definitely feeling better than they felt when they came out of the coarse grit. So I think we've got some good out of it. And they definitely tumbled for quite a while. Both days before they dried out, I know they did, so they feel good. That's what everything looks like. Shape hasn't changed, but smoothness has. So I will continue washing these, get the barrel cleaned up better, and get the rocks cleaned up better. And we'll be back on the tumbler in a minute, and we'll get them going to the next stage. We're all set up back on the tumbler. Everything's been cleaned, and everything's wet with no standing water in there. And we're going to move along with this batch like I would any other batch in the Lotto, just to see how they turn out. Because everything looked pretty good from that last stage, but that sugar, I think, might have affected how fast it dried up and got gummy on me. So it'll be a tablespoon of borax and a half a teaspoon of the 500 grit aluminum oxide. The grit, here's the borax. Alright, they'll go for 3 days, checking the water every time I can, and hopefully we have better luck keeping them rolling for 3 days this stage. So we'll be back when they're done with this step. Our Sodalite ran for 3 days in the 500 grit silicon carbide, and I washed it all off and cleaned the barrel all up, and it's all ready to go to the next stage. Now we're going to move to the 1000 grit silicon carbide. So we will run a half a teaspoon and the tablespoon of borax, and they'll go for 3 days. We'll just check them a couple times a day for moisture and give them a couple sprays of the bottle if they need it, and we'll be ready to go. The Sodalite went for 3 days in the 1000 grit silicon carbide, and I washed everything out and put them back in and ran it with just a tablespoon of borax for a few hours just to clean the barrel and the rocks, because I do all my stages in the same barrel because I only have the one. And I always do that wash with the borax just to get all the other stages hopefully cleaned out of there, so we're ready to go to polish. And I haven't had any issues with it yet, so we keep rolling that way. So we're going to do a tablespoon of borax and a half a teaspoon of polish, and they will go for 3 days. And we'll have some shiny Sodalite, hopefully. All right, we'll just check the water. They'll go for 3 days, and we'll be back and see how they turn out. Well, today the Sodalite has been in polish for 3 days, and we took it out and rinsed it, and it's all dry. And I'd say we're pretty satisfied with the results, but we've also learned a lot. I'd say it's one of the tougher tumbles we've done this far, being that it's a softer rock and it's harder to get the shine out of it. And it's our first time tumbling something softer, so I didn't figure it was going to turn out absolutely perfect, but we've got some that turned out pretty decent. And maybe in the future we may tumble it again, and maybe we'll get better results. But we'll look at a few of them here. All right. So it took a decent shine. I think one of our biggest problems was it felt different, being that it was a softer rock. When it was in the coarse grit, it felt a little different than what we're used to. So I didn't know, I've heard talks about it undercutting and stuff pretty bad. So I think I should have tumbled some of it longer in coarse grit, and we wouldn't have as many flaws. But there are a few flaws here and there, but they turned out pretty decent as a whole. We're pretty happy with them. We did have a few break in the vibratory tumbler, which I don't know if it's just kind of material that has some cracks in it that causes that, or if we tumbled it too long, or what we did. But I did run sugar in medium grit, and it's really hot right now, and we had issues with it drying out too fast when we were away from home, and it did it to us twice. So on the other stages, I didn't add any sugar. I just tumbled it like we would any other rock. And maybe that was part of our problems, and maybe if I try to tumble it again, we'll try to do it when it's a little cooler out, so it doesn't dry out on us like we had issues with on the medium grit. So I know everything that we watch on videos say to run the sugar, and like I say, we did on the one stage, and then we kind of quit because it was making it dry out really bad. So, but I think this one is one of our favorites right here. It's got a cool pattern to it. And let's see, there's another one of the nice ones. You can see that it's pretty shiny, but I'm pretty particular when it comes to flaws, and I didn't tumble this quite as much as I normally would. A little bit because it was softer, and I didn't want to tumble it away, wear it away too fast, but on the other hand, I think I probably should have tumbled some of it a little longer. You can see some of the white lines from the fractures and stuff, but it'll go in our collection as our first load of Sodalite, and possibly we'll try it again. And maybe some of it was the material that I got too. Maybe if we ordered it from a different place, we might get some different material and have some different results, but let's see what else we have here. Yeah, I can feel all those cracks. And they may have a little polish in them yet. We might have to scrub them up a little bit more, but so I've got some pictures of them out in the sun. Maybe that makes them look a little better, a little bit more sun shining on them, but they don't look too bad for our first try. Like I say, it's a little bit more of advanced tumble, and we've never tumbled anything other than agates and jasper that have, they're a little harder. And I think it's easier to get those to take a shine. So we will link some of the pictures here at the end of the video. And we will call this one a semi-success. They look pretty decent. And we will move on to our next material. Like this is one that broke on us in the tumbler. And some of them are more white and less blue. I don't know. I tried looking to see what the two different materials are in there. If there's like the blue as a material and the white as a different material in the Sodalite, but it didn't really specify that anywhere I looked. If you do know, put it in the comments and let me know. Or maybe it's just called Sodalite, the white and the blue. A lot of times the two different materials in rocks are different, like calcite or quartz or this or that or something else, but I couldn't find anything on this. So all right, and that's all of it. We will link a few of our pictures at the end of the video, and thanks for watching.